My friends, today we're diving back in time to examine some of the earliest urban legends and schoolyard rumors that you may have heard back in the day if you owned a Nintendo 64. Could you play as Luigi in Super Mario 64? Could you free Marty in Mario Kart 64? How did you get the Triforce in Ocarina of Time? These were questions that anyone who owned an N64 probably asked themselves at some point. The same childhood imagination that had us wondering what was hidden in the forbidden zone between the garage and the fence in our backyard, or what treasure might await us in the nook behind the furnace in the basement utility room, also had us imagining what might lay hidden in our favorite video games. Today, I wanted to examine some strange and esoteric urban legends or schoolyard rumors that circulated about Nintendo 64 video games in the late 90s and early 2000s, and explain which, if any, may have been true, or at least had a sliver of truth to them. So join me as we embark on this strange and nostalgic journey. But before we get into that, have you ever wished you could create your own video game worlds wherein funny and strange stories could unfold with friends? Well, a huge thanks to our friends over at Yahaha, a brand new user-generated content creation platform for 3D multiplayer interactive experiences. With Yahaha, you can create and publish your own online worlds ready to play with a variety of gaming genres. Best of all, there's no coding experience needed at all, which is great because I am definitely not a coder. You just click and assemble your worlds using the components and smart assets in Yahaha Studios. Here I am creating and running around in a strange back rooms in the mountains. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to get lost in here. Yahaha supports multiplayer, so you can invite your friends and hang out with them in these immersive 3D spaces and create like-minded communities. So check it out now, baby, with the link in the description. Download Yahaha Studio and get to creating your very own online gaming worlds today. The first 90s rumor to examine today is one I was recently reminded of by GoldenEye speedrunning champion Perfect Ace, who told me this story from his youth, based on a rumor or urban legend he had heard. He was playing the Caverns stage, painstakingly eliminating every single guard on the stage. You see, his ultimate wish was to unlock, in the game, the apparently rumored characters Oddjob and Mayday. These two are frequently rumored to appear in the solo player missions of GoldenEye, as they do appear in multiplayer, and when you beat the game, the credits roll through all the characters who appear in the game, cheekily crediting them as if they were actors in a movie, and for some reason, Oddjob and Mayday appear as sort of main characters near Jaws and Baron Samedi, both of whom actually do appear in the game on Aztec and Egypt. So it stood to reason, especially to young'uns back in the 90s with no real access to the internet, nor anywhere to look it up, that Oddjob and Mayday probably did occur in the game somewhere outside of multiplayer. So our pal Perfect Ace gets to the end of Caverns, dispatching every single guard on the stage, and then begins running back through the stage, down the huge spiral, all the way back towards the start. For the rumor he heard back then was that if you pass away every single guard on the stage, and then return to the elevator where you started and open the lift, Oddjob and Mayday will be waiting for you inside, ready for the bonus boss battle of a lifetime. With his heart racing, Ace finally gets all the way back to that starting lift, presses B to open the door, hears the ding of the door opening, and there's no Oddjob or Mayday. He's left disappointed with nothing. It was just a rumor that was simply not true. He had been misled, rused, hoodwinked, though back then there was actually no way to verify if a rumor was true or not, so there was always this nagging part of your brain that thought, maybe I just didn't do it right. Alas, today we know that Oddjob and Mayday do not appear in the solo player portion of GoldenEye, and this rumor was just that, a schoolyard rumor or urban legend. I can't even really find a source for this rumor, as it probably predates widespread internet usage, There is a reference to it on the old Death Star website on the Wayback Machine from even back in 2002, where his theory is that Oddjob and Mayday don't appear in the game because, spoiler alert for 70s and 80s Bond movies, but Oddjob and Mayday pass away in the movies where they appear, whereas Jaws and Baron Samedi don't. And so canonically, it makes sense for Oddjob and Mayday to not appear in the solo player game of GoldenEye. But that's just one explanation, and the rumor likely spread through word of mouth among kids back in the late 90s. And as we'll find out, this strange, unusual rumor was not the only one. So here's perhaps the most infamous urban legend from Mario Kart 64. On Bowser's Castle, there are numerous thwomps who try to crush you and impede your driving. There's one in particular who is locked in a jail cell behind these bars, and strangely he appears green rather than the typical blue one might expect from other thwomps in the N64 era. Now the green appearance might just be the lighting in the jail cell, but even so, his existence sparked the childhood imagination of 90s youth, and eventually he was given the name Marty, believed to be from the Mario Kart 64.com community, who just thought it was a funny and epic name to give the guy. Since then, Marty became this sort of beloved piece of lore in Mario Kart, and there also began numerous rumors and urban legends on how one could free Marty. Of course, these rumors ran wild once again with youthful naivete and imagination, usually never stopping to consider that maybe you just couldn't free Marty, and everyone just wanted to believe that you could do it and would find any way to make it happen. One rumor, I believe, involved getting a star and destroying every single thwomp on the stage while winning the race in Grand Prix mode, which is technically doable, though pretty hard. The thwomps do respawn on the next lap, so this is kind of silly and a bit of a fool's errand. But the most prominent rumor involved some combination of driving circles around this Bowser statue and then driving the course backwards. This is actually pretty difficult to do since you have to drive off into the lava and get placed on the other side of the course by Lakitu at points, and then even harder is when you have to drive up these steps, which takes a very particular lucky type of bounce to make happen. But it is possible. On April 1st, 2007, a gentleman by the name of Clay McElveen uploaded a video purporting to show a successful execution of the Marty unlocking trick, with the jail cell bars going up as Clay celebrates before the video cuts off.
Oh my god! Oh my...
They never end up actually playing or driving around as Marty because, of course, this video was a hoax, as if its upload date of April 1st or April Fool's Day wasn't enough of a giveaway. So yeah, unlocking Marty as a playable character or unlocking him at all and freeing him from his cell was a early internet hoax, myth, or urban legend. Similarly to finding the Triforce in Ocarina of Time, however, modders, coders, and ROM hackers have paid tribute to this urban legend by eventually making it happen by hacking the game one way or another and driving around as Marty, which is pretty cool. Alas, this is the story of Marty, the thwomp who got locked up, never to be free again. Another set of childhood rumors I remember being enamored with were about how to get the Triforce in Ocarina of Time. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen the recent tool-assisted demonstration where, by writing 2 million lines of code to the game with a taskbot, they can literally recode the whole game to the point where you actually can get a Triforce, and that's super cool and all, to say the least. But there was nothing like the childhood wonder of following along with the craziest rumors that would purportedly give you the Triforce back in the day. One that I specifically remember trying was this rumor that if you blew up all the gossip stones in Ocarina of Time, you plant a bomb or a bomb chew, they flash blue and then red and then launch off into the sky, this process would somehow lead you to finding the Triforce. I believe the rumor used to allege that once you did this, you bombed all 32 gossip stones so they took off flying into the sky, Kapora Gabora would then appear and teach you the Overture of Sages, which would warp you to the Temple of Light, and from there you could get the Triforce. I actually don't think this was in the original version of the hoax about the Light Temple and Overture of Sages, which was published by Ariana in the early 2000s. I think this was some kind of hybrid rumor that some anonymous internet poster dreamt up, combining doing some arduous tasks like blowing up all the stones with the more established Temple of Light rumor. But you see, it was even more convoluted than that, because the rumor claimed you had to blow up all the stones as Child Link, and you couldn't warp between locations at all. This is actually technically possible with modern day knowledge and glitches. You can start by warping to this one outside the Shadow Temple, and then jump off, and then just walk or roll or back walk to almost all of the other Gossip Stones. But there is one in the Desert Colossus, and I remember being a kid and thinking, well, there's no way that I can cross the Haunted Wasteland without warping, so this one must allow you to warp to it. It must be some exception to the rule. Now, of course, today it's definitely possible to cross the Haunted Wasteland with modern tricks and glitches, but back in the early 2000s, very few people knew how to do this. And so because it was so hard to complete this task, I tried to justify it doing mental gymnastics that, yeah, while blowing up all the stones to get the Overture of Sages must be legit, the not warping part must have been, a bit confused because it's impossible. The kid logic you go to trying to justify how or why a process that you want to works is truly strange and silly. A further issue with this urban legend is that there are 4 gossip stones here outside the Temple of Time, and you can't use bombs here, so these ones just can't be blown up at all. This is obviously a problem and shows how ridiculous the whole process is, if it wasn't already. But still, I went through with it all to the best of my ability, blowing up the 28 gossip stones in the game, warping once to get the Desert Colossus one, ignoring the 4 by the Temple of Time, and hoping for the best. Of course, nothing happened, but even so, I tried to convince myself that maybe if someday I could find a way to do it all properly without warping, maybe then it would work. We know this all to be false today. There's no in-game natural way to get the Triforce. But it really reminds me of this crazy time on the internet when you would just believe anything you wanted, and if you wanted to believe there was some special, rare, convoluted way to get the Triforce, you would do just that, even though you knew the harsh reality was that there probably was no way to get the Triforce in Ocarina of Time. So this one's kind of a personal urban legend that I was convinced should work, but of course it was simply a myth, a hoax. In Pokemon Snap, a common way to get some Pokemon to evolve is by bonking them into water or lava with an apple or Pester Ball. This is how you get Charmeleon to evolve into Charizard, it's how you get Weepinbell to evolve into Victreebel. It's a common and expected in-game mechanic. So on the Volcano level, I was certain that there must be a way to knock Vulpix into the lava in order to get her to evolve into Ninetales. I tried this for hours and hours, different angles, different techniques, playing different songs, all sorts of things to try to lure the Vulpix into different spots on the map and bonk them into the lava, but nothing worked. They simply cannot fall into the lava on any part of the level. The course is just not designed that way, with the Vulpix unable to fall off anywhere they can roam. Of course, back in your youthful, imaginative mind, I firmly wanted to believe that the Ninetales evolution was possible. It just seemed way too obvious for them to not include it, and so I made myself believe it was possible. I swear I even remember reading about it on an old forum post in the early 2000s that others speculated Ninetales should be possible to get with this method too, but I admit that part could be a false memory. Anyhow, of course, today we know that Ninetales is simply not in the game. There's no model for it programmed in, it was never intended to be in the game, and yet as a kid, instead of accepting this fact, I was willing to accept any other idea that would make it possible. Perhaps I was just doing it wrong, or I didn't unlock some secret thing to make it work, or I had to do something else in the later stages of the game to get Ninetales. And that's kind of how these early internet and pre-internet rumors worked. If something sort of made a bit of sense and was believable, then you and others could and would easily believe it. And without the coding or decomp tools to analyze a game, nor any widespread community to analyze or debunk theories, it was just so easy to believe something that was just not true and never programmed into the game. Lastly for this video, on the topic of N64 urban legends and schoolyard myths, I wanted to take a look at an email I received a few months ago with 5 of these schoolyard rumors sent to me from a man going by John the Butcher from New Jersey. So hello John, and hello to all butchers in New Jersey. These myths are pretty cool that he sent me and very genuine, coming from just a random guy who played GoldenEye back in the day. So hey John, and let's take a look at your 5 rumors. You can survive the explosion at the end of train if you have enough health should you fail to get the floor hatch open. So this is an interesting rumor because off the top I wasn't exactly sure if it were possible, but I tried it a few months back and I only survived about once or twice in about 10 tries. But then I tried it again recently and I survived first try, so it is doable. Of course, it's not really all that useful since Natalia will pass away from the flames, and her survival is almost impossible, and so you'll fail the mission that way. There's not any kind of last chance desperation survival completion if you fail the locks off. But you can survive the explosions at the end of the train, and that's pretty cool. They seem to go off in a kind of pattern, and so by learning the pattern of where the explosions start, and also using your invincibility frames to the fullest of their ability, someone might become pretty proficient at pulling off this useless but fascinating trick. You can fire your dual-wielded weapons crosswise like an enemy by mashing all the buttons on the controller at the same time. Okay, now this one is obviously not true, and it's very childish, but it is kind of funny because there is sort of a kernel of truth to it. Or at least it's understandable how something similar may have been what led to this schoolyard rumor back in the day. Because one thing you can do as far as dual-wielding weapons goes is mix a pair of weapons, if when switching you interrupt the switching on the left weapon by shooting. This was a pretty well-known and widespread trick back in the 90s, although the technique of pressing A and then AZ with good timing might not have been so well specifically drilled down. It bears reason that, back then, the general gist passed around through the schoolyards and birthday parties might have been something like, well, if you mash a bunch of buttons in a weird way, you can dual-wield 2 different weapons, and so you can see how this kind of rumor may have floated around to the point where it presented in the way our pal John had remembered. But yeah, you can definitely not cross your weapons like sometimes you see the guards do in GoldenEye. You can find Mishkin in Runway and he has dialogue. This one is interesting to me since it's the first time I've ever heard of it, but it's not the most far-fetched rumor as far as other NPC characters being hidden on some levels go. We already examined the Mayday and Oddjob on Caverns rumor, or the classic myth about Xenia being on Frigate, something that was even alluded to in the secret files briefing you on the mission. And it was probably going to be put in the game at some point, but was later removed. And so this does give credence to the possibility that other NPCs and characters were on other levels at some point before being removed or altered. Of course, the Xenia on Frigate rumor is very epic because of this floating door, which can only be accessed when you use Tiny Bond mode and then use a glitch where you crouch down a flight of stairs and float, and you see the door, it goes nowhere, And if you open it and then circle back around, you can see that the door is on another part of the level, but the room around it is not loaded. It's this weird Schrodinger's door, but it certainly does not lead to Xenia, despite it stoking fuel on the fire of these rumors back in the day. And so as far as Mishkin goes, I can see why this was a rumor. He only appears on statue and archives. On archives, you talk to him for like 20 seconds to get the safe open. And on statue, you don't even need to talk to him at all to beat the level. Some speedrunners might not even know he's on the stage, since if you get the best flight recorder spawn, you go back to the ending of the stage too quickly for him to even spawn there. He's not part of any objective, everything is complete before talking to him, so I can see why it might have been believed that surely Mishkin has a diminished role in the game and he must appear somewhere else. But alas, he does not. The hunting knife was originally in the game for the unmask Yanis objective, as you would run up to him and literally cut his mask off. This one is pretty funny and kind of cringe, as you can really see how one might interpret the objective unmask Yanis differently when you're a kid and not well versed in metaphors and the like. You know, not understanding what the term unmask means in the context of the objective. However, it does touch on an interesting point. The fact that the hunting knives are an unlockable cheat in the game for beating jungle agent in under 345 is interesting because the hunting knives do not appear anywhere in the game naturally. They only appear when you have this cheat. And so it's easy to see how this absence could give rise to various rumors about the intended purpose of the knives. There are a number of weapon cheats in GoldenEye, double rockets, double throwing knives, Moonraker lasers, and all these weapons can be found naturally in the game at some point, but not the hunting knives, so I can see how this led many to believe that they must have had some kind of deeper original purpose. One interesting fact about the hunting knives cheat is, however, that these items are not in the Japanese version of the game due to cultural differences surrounding knives. The cheat you get for beating the target time on Jungle Agent instead is this wacky combination of the sniper rifle and rocket launcher, which is admittedly pretty fun to mess around with, especially because, harkening back to our earlier discussion about mixed dual-wielding weapons, you can't get this combination of items on the English version of the game, since there's no place where you can pick up 2 snipers and 2 rockets, and with the all guns cheat on, there are too many weapons in between for you to get this mix in order. So it truly is a Japanese version only thing. The throwing knives do remain on the Japanese version of the game too, so that's interesting I suppose, and that's about all the hunting knife lore I've got. A bizarre and silly, yet cute and understandable schoolyard rumor from back in the day. If you aggro a scientist, sometimes he'll attack you with a Cougar Magnum. Well, it's really easy to see how this one became a rumor, because if you injure a scientist twice, he will indeed become aggravated and attack you, either with a nade or a Dostave DD-44, which is also a silver pistol. So it's incredibly easy to see how back in the day this got confused for the Cougar Magnum. That's probably the entire explanation of this rumor. The DD-44 is pretty loud and it feels as if it hits you pretty hard, even though it does a standard amount of damage. So yeah, if you were a young lad back in the day, you could easily have confused this for the Magnum. The scientist can literally only pull nades and DD-44s. Interestingly, the Cougar Magnum does not appear naturally in the game at all, at least not where you can pick it up and use it without cheats. Natalia is holding one and uses it on jungle, and is still holding it on control, but even if she passes away, you cannot collect this weapon. It's one of very few instances in the game where this happens. The weapon simply despawns with her. So, there is our look at a few esoteric Nintendo 64 urban legends and schoolyard rumors. I hope you enjoyed my analysis today, and I would love to hear any rumors or legends that you grew up with back in the day, whether they're on Nintendo 64 or any other console. With that, thanks for watching, my friends. Stay true, and I'll see you in the next stream or video.